two most impressive games anyone's ever watched on their couch in those two Vince Young performances. It's really surprising to see someone in their first two starts play like that.
All right, well, having heaped the, I think, appropriate amount of praise on Denard Robinson, though, I don't think there is a level. So many records he's set the last 2 weeks. Let's be Michigan fans and get worried about things. I think that's what we do best. Let's move to the defense. Michigan outgained in this game by about 3 yards. That includes, lots of domers out there saying, oh, well, Dane Chris played the whole game. He didn't. Maybe he shouldn't, hit his head so hard on the ground, I guess. I don't know. Denard carried it a lot more times. Is this defense good, Scott? They did force Notre Dame to punt 8 times. 4 of them when Dane Chris was playing quarterback.
The defense is not good. The defense is not great. The defense is a lot better than most Michigan fans were expecting going into the year. Most Michigan fans were expecting just for the secondary to get torched every time between J.T. Floyd and James Rogers. Have played pretty well the first couple games. Michael Floyd, the star receiver on Notre Dame, 5 catches, 66 yards. Not nearly the stats he put up last week. Now there's issues still. The safeties have some things to work through. Cam Gordon got beat a couple times on really long balls by letting people get behind him. Those have to be fixed, but you can definitely see an improvement between last year and this year with the Greg Robinson system.
And especially, David, that 95-yard Kyle Rudolph touchdown catch where Cam Gordon just took a terrible angle that was eerily reminiscent to that Iowa game last year where, with the exception of 3 or 4 big plays, Iowa's offense was fairly contained. And of course, had Denard not worked his magic one last time on that drive, that's what we'd be talking about, a 95-yard touchdown catch.
Right, and we've seen a lot of that from this Michigan defense in the past couple of years. I mean, you have 535 yards of total offense by Notre Dame. They threw 3 interceptions and lost the time possession battle by over 8 minutes. I mean, Michigan did dominate this game in most facets other than giving up the big plays on defense and giving up a lot of plays, quite frankly. Being that they forced 8 punts, they obviously had to give up quite a few big plays, and they did. I mean, terrible angles, hitting people high, the personal fouls all came back to haunt Michigan at some point in this game. 99
penalty yards in that game for Michigan versus only 1 penalty in the UConn game. Certainly there were more penalties than that than just one called. But of course, the Big Ten officiating crew officiated this game to the chagrin of everyone, I think. I don't think Michigan fans enjoy Big Ten officials, and I know Notre Dame fans don't enjoy Big Ten officials. And I know that Rich Rodriguez does not enjoy field goal kicking, Scott. This game would have been half of the heart attacks suffered during this game while watching this game could have been avoided had Michigan hit their 2 40-yard field goals. I mean, it's difficult, but not impossible, and they were 0 for 2 in those key situations.
Yeah, and Gibbons, the kicker, got a little unfortunate to have them both on the hash mark that was toughest for him to make that kick. With the left footer on the left hash mark, that is a tough kick, but still, you're a kicker. You got to be expected to make those 40-yard kicks at the Division I level like that. Very tough misses, especially because Michigan was driving down the field. Michigan only scored 7 points in the entire second half, so people say, oh, maybe the offense wasn't as good. That's not really the case. They moved the ball well, and kickers need to make those field goals, so we'll see where this goes from here. And the punting wasn't particularly good either.
Yeah, Will Hagerup, really, for all his touting, maybe he needed more than 1 punt, as Rich Rod joked in his post-game presser against UConn to kind of break it in.
Well, I'm going to be a little more optimistic. He had a lot of punts from inside the 50 where he didn't have a whole lot of room to work with. When you're a freshman punter, you can't always pin people inside the 10-yard line. So I'm a little more cautiously optimistic about the play of Will Hagerup so far. The kicking game obviously needs to be fixed. I find myself hiding behind a pillow cushion every time Jeremy Gallen takes a punt. So, I mean, there are some things in special teams to fix. But right now, I think you can be cautiously optimistic, at least about the punting game.
Ironically, all it takes is a pillow to hide Jeremy Gallen from the opposition. Maybe they should try that. Well, let's move on now and talk about this in a little more strategic way. You take a look at our 2010 full season predictions that we made at the beginning of the year. Now, Scott, last year you infamously, after the 4-0 start, boosted your expectations to, I think, 9-3, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, this is Adam, still with his, bold prediction of one game being canceled for some reason at 7-4. But what was your baseline coming in, Scott, because we haven't had you on the show yet, and do you, with knowing what happened the first 2 games, alter that baseline at all?
My baseline was 8-4, but I expected them to lose one of the games, either UConn or Notre Dame, so therefore I got to at least be at 9-3. I'm not sure about 10-2. That's a very good season for such an inexperienced team with still a lot of holes to work through, especially on defense. So I'd go 9-3 if I were to put it at a number now.
Okay, so Scott's at 9-3, saying he's cautiously, knocking his prediction up one game after seeing them beat UConn and Notre Dame in back-to-back weeks. David, is your 8-4 moving?
No, this is exactly what I expected from this team. And I mean, with Michigan playing the way they are, you still have to think that they're going to struggle against some of those better teams in the Big Ten. It's just one of those things where if you can't stop the pass, you're going to get burned, especially against teams that can throw. And I just think Michigan, hasn't proved they can really win on the road quite a bit. It's going to be a little bit of a struggle in Big Ten season, but I still think 8-4 is a pretty comfortable prediction.
Yeah, I'm a little less pessimistic about the Indiana game, I'll say. But seeing as Penn State lost big to Alabama, which we'll talk about in a minute, but they didn't look so awful doing it, I might be less confident about the going to Penn State and winning thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're sort of coming into a situation where what you normally are with Michigan is you expect them to be in every game now after having seen them for the past few years. Now, again, this is what we said last year, but after the first two games, it does seem like they can at least compete with Ohio State in situations like that. But you still, Denard Robinson is going to face much more physical teams than he has the first 2 weeks, and he is not going to be able to run over them and around them and wherever he wants. So that's going to be an issue. There's still a lot of things they have to improve in order to beat Big Ten competition, because it's a different game than it has been against UConn and Notre Dame strategically.
All good points. We have to go to commercial break, but coming back on the other side, we'll talk about Ohio State. They're looking mighty good this year. Welcome back to Varsity Blue. Alex Prasad, David Nowes, Scott Wagner. Take a look at the Big Ten results of this past weekend. A pretty good weekend for the Big Ten. Of course, highlighted by Ohio State defeating Miami at home 36-24. Michigan also with a big win at Notre Dame. But Minnesota losing to South Dakota. Wow, that hurts. You also see everyone else. It seemed like it was Illinois week in the Big Ten, playing Southern Illinois, Western Illinois, Eastern Illinois, whoever. You take a look at the standings, Michigan, they're still number one in the standings. They're only tied with 6 teams, but hey, we'll take that. I haven't seen that in a while, at least. So let's start out with the Ohio State-Miami game, guys, and we'll start with you, Scott. Ohio State looked good against Marshall. It's Marshall, though. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? They looked good against Miami, too. And Miami at least has BCS talent. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, Miami recruits the best and the fastest players in the country. And Ohio State definitely looked like a far superior team in this game. Ja'Cory Harris really struggled, and Terrell Pryor played well. If you want to watch this touchdown run here, Denard Robinson-esque, dare I say. But Ohio State is looking like a very good football team.
And of course, you see Ja'Cory Harris right there, David, your favorite Miami Hurricane.
Yeah, and as a fair weather Miami Hurricanes fan, that kind of hurts to see. Throw 17 picks last year, follows that up with 4 picks in this game. Right. You're not going to beat a team like Ohio State doing that. And you're not really going to beat any good team doing that. It's tough to see, but just another bad ACC team.
Perhaps another Heisman campaign launched prematurely, just like Robert Marv's, as we discussed last week on the show. Also a big game out of conference, and Monster Saturday, as ESPN never ceased to remind us. Alabama-Penn State. Definitely one-sided on the scoreboard, guys, but as you were mentioning, Scott, Penn State did move the ball a lot more than their 3 points would suggest.
They did. They had several times where they got down within the 30 of Alabama, only to see a turnover or some poor play. And remember, Penn State had a freshman quarterback, actually, for you Michigan people, from Orchard Lake St. Mary's. And he definitely struggled when it got to crunch time when he started moving down. But they did move the ball. They only gave up 24 points to Alabama, so they definitely got beaten, but, you were expecting them to lose a little bit. So the scoreboard is deceptively one-sided.
And David, let's move now to the Minnesota-South Dakota game. Tim Brewster at Big Ten Media Days, very excited to declare that he is not scared to schedule anyone in his non-conference schedule. Well, after losing to a Dakota 2 of the last 3 years, is he more scared now?
Well, this game, was just ridiculous. You see the total yardage, the type of numbers put up by both teams, very even. The only difference is one of them's a Big Ten team, and one of them I didn't even really know existed. So it's definitely it's a